So we paid off $30,000 worth of debt and grew our savings account to over $15,000 without even breaking a sweat. You want to know how we did it? So about 18 months ago, we decided to try something that's been catching a lot of traction lately, and it's called the Barefoot Investor Guide. It's a money management system that's been getting a lot of headlines, and we thought, why not just give it a shot? Now, our goals for any money management guide is we want to reduce our debt a whole lot faster. We want to develop a safety net, and most importantly, we want to be able to enjoy life here and now. I mean, you work so hard for this money to set it up for down the future, great, but who doesn't want to enjoy the fruits of their labor right now? I mean, that's a little bit of slavery. Now, the challenges that we had to address in order to get ahead was, number one, we're just your average Australian family. We've got 3 kids under 7, we have a mortgage on our house, and we've got 2 cars to get to and from work and do all that other stuff. We both work, and so we have very little energy after work, and with the family, means it's very easy to try and go for the convenient method and always get something like takeaway. Hey, hon.
Yeah.
I don't feel like cooking tonight. Can we get some takeout?
Wait, takeout? Can we have McDonald's?
No, there's no money left in the extras.
But what makes this interesting is how effective this method is, even for an average family like ours. We're not earning a high amount of income, but from what you heard me say earlier, it's doing really well. So the question you're probably asking yourself is, could this work for you? Well, yeah, it could. And let me show you how we did it. So I've been trying to get ahead financially since I was about 17 years old. So that's about 20 years. And I've tried a lot of different methods. And this is what I've learned. Complexity is the enemy of execution. But what do I mean by that? Let me show you something that might make a little bit more sense. So if you've ever tried to learn how to swing a golf club, you know how frustrating it can be and how complex it can be. And if you ever go to get advice from a coach or something, they can give you multiple steps. Let me give you an example. Start by addressing the ball correctly and place the ball slightly forward center of your stance. Now step your feet out about shoulder width apart and begin your backswing by turning your shoulders to waist height. And continue to the top, hinging your wrists. Now drop your arms down into the slot, lead with your hips and shoulders, turning towards the ball to finish. Now let's try that at full speed. Address the ball slightly forward of center. Now start by turning your shoulders, then follow with your waist and you hinge your wrist and then drop into this. Okay. Ultimately, all you really want to do is hit that ball. Now imagine trying to think about all those steps in that split second it takes to swing that golf club. It's pretty much impossible, right? Well, that's the same thing about money. The more complex you make it, the more difficult it is to stick to. I mean, you might need to learn to change your habits a little bit, but it's nowhere near as difficult as trying to learn a golf swing. And that's the beauty about this whole automation process. So now you're probably wondering, well, how do I do that? Well, if you haven't read the book, or even if you have and you still don't quite get it, I'm about to show you very simply how we do it. This is our salary, our income, our wages, whatever income it is, that's what that's supposed to represent. Once it gets sent to us, it arrives into our everyday transactions account. Now, from that everyday transactions account, it then gets distributed automatically because you've set up automatic distributions into an extras or spending account, a smile or savings account, and lastly, a Mojo account. So a Mojo is like your emergency fund savings account. I'll go into a bit more detail about what all these accounts do in just a moment. You also have what's called a fire extinguisher stream. It's a stream of money that's putting out fires and paying out debts that you've accumulated over time at this point. Okay, so just quickly, before I get into this part of it, while I'm editing, I've realized that the way I've explained the fire extinguisher isn't the exact way that he does it in his book. The way I've explained it is the way that we've adapted it because I'm keen to pay off our house within the next 4 years. In saying that, this is basically it. Let's get back to it. So let's say your debts are, you've got a couple of credit cards, you've got a car loan, and you've got a mortgage. You may have more debts than these, but let's just run with this as an example. So your fire extinguisher, you first point that off at your smallest debt, and let's say it's this credit card. So now that you've received your income, let's take that away to avoid confusion. And now you've got your everyday savings account, which is holding all your money, and that's going to be distributing its percentage of money into the spendings account. So this is what you can spend on non-essential items. And this is your Smile account, which saves up for your bigger ticket items like holidays, bigger purchases, that kind of thing. And your Mojo account is your safety net. That should be holding and saving up for at least 3 months of your expenses. So then that way, if anything ever does happen, you have a 3-month buffer of money there that you can rely on. The Everyday Transactions account is the account that handles all of the grocery bills, your monthly bills, weekly bills, Rego, utility, all those type of things, your essential items. Now this fire extinguisher first gets pointed at the smallest debt, and let's say it's this credit card. So your minimum repayments of your credit card are going ahead as per usual, as well as the other repayments to all of your debts you currently have. But this fire extinguisher stream, it then points to your smallest debt paying a little bit extra towards the smallest debt until eventually that debt is paid off faster than it would normally have been if you just made the minimum repayments. So let's get rid of that. At this point, your fire extinguisher is a little bit bigger now because you're taking the minimum repayments that were going towards that debt and what was going to original fire extinguisher, and you're now combining them into one. And now this applies and gets put towards the next debt. Let's say it's the second credit card, and you pay it off a little bit faster, saving yourself a little bit more time, compounding the amount of money you can put towards that credit card debt. And let's say that gets paid off and that one's gone. Then your fire extinguisher account gets a little bit bigger. Your fire extinguisher is now pointed towards, let's say, your next largest debt, which is your car. And as you pay off your car debt and your car is getting paid off faster because you've now accumulated credit card 1, credit card 2, and the fire extinguisher, you're paying this off a lot faster than you initially expected, and now that's all done. Finally, your fire extinguisher is quite large and massive, and what you do is you point that fire extinguisher towards your mortgage, accelerating the payment of your mortgage, making the minimum payments plus everything else that was going into your car and your credit card and other credit card, everything that's left over is now going straight into the mortgage, accelerating the payment and getting rid of your mortgage a whole lot faster. Now to break these buckets down further, let me explain the percentages. So your everyday account, where everything all comes in and gets distributed from, that is 60%. So 60% of your daily living expenses is your everyday account. You should have your expenses no more than 60%. The next account is the extras spending account. That's 10%. So 10% of your income goes into the extras spending account. Then on top of that is your savings Smile account. That's 10% of savings from your salary. That income goes into here, 10%. Lastly, your Mojo. Your Mojo is your separate account. This just needs to be built up to that 3 months worth of savings. Now, question, how much is this fire extinguisher? Well, if everything balances out right, you've got 60% going into your everyday daily expenses being met, 10% into your spending, 10% into your Smile, then 20% should be forwarded onto your fire extinguisher stream. And that will obviously grow as you pay off the debts that we've been talking about. So fire extinguisher first, you point it towards your Mojo account, which is your emergency fund. And once that's full, then you point it towards your other debts that we had earlier. Now, I didn't mention investing because investing is a little bit of a separate process for this. So in his book, he recommends boosting your superannuation to about 15% from the standard 9. And once you've paid off all of your debts, including your mortgage, then your fire extinguisher then gets distributed into a separate investing account outside of your super. But at this stage, for us and for a lot of other people, we still have a mortgage in place. So you want to get that peace of mind first and get your debts out of the way before you even start trying to get investing. It's a little bit controversial for some people, but hey, as I said, it's all about simplicity. Now, there are 3 keys that have made this method work really effectively for us. Firstly, When you run out of money from one bucket, let's say the extra spending account bucket, don't go reaching around into your Smile savings account bucket or your everyday grocery bills bucket to fill it up so you can buy more takeaway or go out for drinks. That's not the whole That's not the whole purpose of this whole bucket system. The bucket system is this is what you're allocated, this is how much you have for this period until you get paid next. So don't overspend. Point number 2, automation makes decision making very, very easy. It's not always what you want, but it's for your own good. As I said before, if you don't have any money left inside of your extra spendings account and you want to go out for drinks with your friends, but you've already overspent, it's kind of like, well, sorry guys, I can't afford to make it this week, maybe next time. It's not about being antisocial, it's about living within your means. Which flows into my third step, that if you follow the first 2 points of number 1, not taking from other buckets if you run out of money in another bucket. Number 2, letting it be automated so you don't have to make these long, hard decisions every time. Number 3 simply means that you start to develop a habit of living within your means. Now, it wasn't always smooth sailing for us. I mean, life rarely is. For us, when we were first saving up and putting all the money into our Mojo account, we almost hit our target and one of our cars broke down.
Jeez.
The amount to repair the car actually cost more than the car was worth itself. So we had to buy another car because my wife and I had to both drive to work separately and pick up the kids from school and do all those type of things. But instead of taking out a car loan, thankfully, we had the cash saved up in the Mojo account, which we were able to pay the car off in full and get back on the road within a really small amount of time. It did set us back, meaning that we had to start filling up that Mojo account again, but that's what the account is for. It gives you that peace of mind, it's that emergency fund. And since then, we've been able to replenish that Mojo account, and we're actually onto the stage where we're paying off more towards our mortgage. So now you might be wondering, well, what are your results so far? Well, we get to do a little bit more of this. And the greatest part is, we don't ever bat an eyelid because we know what money is allocated and we know how to use it and what's there. You're never borrowing money that you don't have, like a credit card or Afterpay or any of those type of schemes. Because you're always using the money that's allocated in your buckets, so you know what's there, and when you're out, you're out. So for the past 18 months, we've been able to stick to it pretty easily too. Are we going to stick to it going forward? That's a no-brainer. Now, after watching this video, if you want to know the 2 ways to get ahead in your finances, then make sure you keep an eye out for my next video. I've tried both methods, and one way is significantly easier than the other. Until next time, I'm the Real Mitchoy.